So this is what I was explaining. So growing commercialization. You know, during the Edo period, Japan was doing really well. There is no invasion. There was no severe famine or earthquake. So economy was blossoming, and it's like any other parts of the world, it's the beginning of early modern period, right? Concentration of wealth. So one of the most prominent influences on merchant culture during the Tokugawa was the rise of a form of the theatrical staging known as kabuki. So you probably sometimes heard about the no, like some of the clothes that you found at the Metropolitan Museum, those were no costumes. So no is a very ancient form of theater, and it even started from the Nara period, Nara and Heian period, and that's very aristocratic, and the conversations are full of literary analogy. So unless you have learning, you cannot quite understand all the meanings of it, right? Like just like a, you know, Prince Genji's this monologue. But kabuki is new forms art that started in much later in Edo period. So they emulated no, but they got rid of those literary like allusions, and it's more immediate, and they don't put the mask. So no, they put masks. So that's how Japanese mask artisan tree developed on a high level. But kabuki, you don't put the mask, you put the makeup on the face, directly on the face. And then your storyline is a little bit more scandalous. It's more like adventure stories or romance stories, or very popular stories, or ghost stories, or monsters, you know, those stories. So it's a type of operatic popular theater, and that feature live action, sensational plots, and colorful costumes. So here, most of the clothes that were collected in Western museums, Western meaning European and North American museums right now, those are usually kabuki costume. The uchikake that you used as an example in your storyboard, a lot of uchikake were actually worn by kabuki actresses, actors and actresses from the late 19th century. In the beginning, there were both men and women in terms of kabuki actors, but then you can see that this is spectacular, right? A lot of audience, live audiences, you know, looking at you and try to touch the actors. So because of some scandals involving the women actors, eventually women cannot perform. It's only men. So a man will perform as a woman, or a girl, or a boy, or a man. So you know, because it's men performing all different genders, the dress becomes very important, and then the makeup. So I don't know whether you've heard of the kabuki makeup. Have you ever heard of like a kabuki style makeup? So it's extremely you know, exaggerated, and then because you want to show like a ghost, or you know, the type of, if there is a thief in the story, right? Bad guys, makeup should show. So it's exaggerated in terms of eyebrows and so forth. But what the reason I am bringing up this kabuki is, so this is where the fashion trend is dispersed. So people come and they see something on the kabuki show, like and then they talk about it, and women and children cannot go here. Supposedly these are all men, like adult men who can go to kabuki shows. Women and children, as you can imagine, they are not quite citizens in early modern standard. But sometimes you have these women, but these women are not wives of these men. Like these women are either geishas, or like a tea salon way, you know, attendants, or these kind of, you know, people living in pleasure quarters. I want you to remember this word, pleasure quarters. In Edo period, in order to control that the morality of the society, kabuki shows were only played inside the pleasure quarters. So any city had a little district designated for pleasure quarters. So, you know, we are living in New York City, but if in New York City, if you designate pleasure quarters, which neighborhood would be a good place?
Times Square?
Yes, supposedly. I guess you are too young to know the history of Times Square, but I mean, most of you were born in what, 2003, 4, right? But Times Square in the early 20th century, those were full of those like gentlemen's clubs who are like, do you know the peeping show? Like, you know, you want to see a little bit of pornographic images through the little window, then you'd go to Times Square. So yeah, Times Square is the pleasure quarters of New York City, but in Japan, any city has it. But the reason I'm bringing up is, again, without the mass media, how do you know what is new fashion of the time? You'd go to pleasure quarters. And for example, in the city of any city had one pleasure district, but in Tokyo, for example, it is the famous one is called Yoshiwara. Yeah, Yoshiwara. And you'd go there. Then what do you see? You have a kabuki theater on one side, and hold on, I want to go into that pen mode. So how do I get my pen? Yeah. You to go in there, then do you know the word red light? So people go in for fun and cheap entertainment. So like a no, for example, it is one family's generosity. You are going to invite entire no troop to your own estate, and the family will have all the no costumes and masks and theater. You own all of those. But kabuki is people pay admission fees, and there is a success, right? Like if you, you know, if the room is filled with people every single night, just like a Broadway shows, it's a huge success. So as a word of mouth, people go and see the new fashion.